Hi there folks, my name's DH.104 and welcome to another little review of an FSX and P3D product. So today we're going to be having a look at the recent release of DeHaviland Dove and Devon. So this has been released by Just Flight and it's been developed by the great team over at Aeroplane Heaven. So we've been responsible for quite a few of the excellent Just Flight releases as well as a few releases of their own. So we're here today in going to be looking at this in P3D, but as I said, it is fully compatible with not only P3D but also with FSX in all its variations, as well as P3D in all its variations as well. Now I'm using the avatar here. I'm not fully used to this avatar thing at the moment. It's a little bit weird, but I think it's kind of cool and something a little different to be able to give us a chance to look over the outside of the aircraft. So as you can see here, we're taking the DeHaviland Dove Mark 6. Is the one we're taking out for a spin today. It's in the colours of South Australian Air Taxis, and suitably enough, we're taking a flight in South Australia as well. We're going to be departing from Adelaide International and heading over to Port Lincoln. So just for just a nice little regional flight there for that one. So just a quick one. So we'll just have a quickly look at the outside here. Then I think I might go back to my more traditional view of the outside. I think the avatar thing's a little bit weird for me at the moment. But anyway, so the aircraft is pretty well is interestingly modelled. So you have the ability to connect the ground power unit. As we can see, we've got that hooked up there, and you enable and disable that from within the cockpit, and you can get some the ideas of the sleek lines that you get from the Havilland Dove. This avatar thing's really weird. Can I just say that? It's really strange. Still haven't quite fully grasped it yet. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm going to go back to the aircraft. Anyway, so yeah, it's good. So we'll sort of just have a look at a couple of other little things. So yeah, we've got like all the remove for flight tags as well. What are you doing, Avatar? Seriously, what where are you going? What are you doing? Hey. Anyway, so yeah, we can see that the aircraft's is got all its features and things and all the extra little bits that you get as well. Again, all activated from the cockpit. What are you doing, Avatar? What are you doing? Okay, you're fired. That's it. You're fired. You're totally fired. We're totally going back to the airplane right now. Okay. All right. So here we are back once again into our more normal sort of view. So here we are. We've got the exterior of the aircraft, so we can have a look at a bit more detail before we get started up. So as you can see, yeah, we've got the pretty decent. We've got some amazing looking textures here as well for the aircraft, and it's all its color schemes. Now it's kind of cool because it does come with different versions of the Dove and the Devon as well, which is really nice. It's got it's not just the one model and everything's just adapted to that. No, it actually has different models in there for different purposes, and we'll touch on more of that once we're in the flight. And it covers a variety of liveries, historical liveries that the aircraft flew in its long and varied career. And you can definitely get some of the feeling of its origins as a post-World War II design, and you can see some of the things where it's come. You can tell it's come from the same crew that designed and developed the Mosquito, the wooden wonder during the Second World War. So it's pretty interesting history there. But yeah, the textures are reasonably good quality here. Sort of nice reflectivity is just sort of constant reflectivity, which is nice, as well as the little extra features of the ground power and the removal for flight tags as well. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the aircraft. We're going to get us started. We're going to be doing a cold and dark start today, and then we're going to head out on our journey of ferrying people around South Australia. So let's wrap around here and climb into our aircraft. Pretty cool to do it in the avatar mode, but yeah, Avatar and I are we're still working each other out. We really are. Alright, so here we are, once again we are in, but here we are inside the aircraft now. Now, as you can see, it looks like a fairly complex cockpit, but actually it's pretty basic and pretty simple sort of design and layout. You've got your basic 6, of course, as you always do in your primary flight displays and your primary flight control area. And then you've got a few switches and knobs, and none of this modern glass stuff, though interestingly enough, Just Flying Aeroplane Heaven did include a modernized cockpit option, which sort of replaces the center communication stack here with a range of modern devices, including GPS and all sorts of other fun things there. So, and we'll have a look at that cockpit in a little bit as well. But our first point is we're going to be needing to close our door. So we're going to get rid of the remover for flight tags. And we're going to get rid of the stairs. So we do that from the switches there, and we shall close our door. And we see that securing there. And as you can see, we've got rid of our remover for flight tags, and the stairs have gone obviously from the door closing as well. All right, so let's get ourselves up and running. All right, so let's go through. So we've got our primary flight displays here. Alright, now we're going to need to shuffle across to this panel over here. So currently we've got our power coming from our ground power unit. So first of all, let's get our battery on. Got a little notification lights here saying our generators aren't running. Yeah, we're aware of that one. Alright, now first things first, we're going to need to turn on open up our fuel cocks. Now the fuel cocks have an interesting position in this aircraft. They're actually located behind the captain's seat, so we've sort of switched over to the co-pilot view to sort of be able to turn and open those up. Alright, so we've got those enabled now. Alright, so our next step is going to be we're going to want to prime our engines. And we'll switch to our internal power, so we'll turn our ground power off, and that should have got rid of our ground power unit. Yep, so we're just running on our battery at the moment. Alright, now let's start with engine 1, do a primer on it, turn the magnetos, and engine starts. In the RPMs spike up a little bit there. Excellent. Alright, engine 1 running. Next step's going to be to get our magnetos on, or prime the engine, our magnetos on, and now engines start for engine 2. Alright, now that we've done that, we'll be able to check our engines turning nicely beside us. There they are, sort of obscured by the cockpit combing there. Alright, now we can get our generators on. So first generator for engine 1's behind the captain. And generator 2 behind the co-pilot, or in the military versions, the navigator. Alright, okay, so we're pretty much good there. So alright, let me just quickly consult my flight plan. So from our flight plan that's been fortunately loaded by Active Sky Next, we're going to be heading on a, let's have a look what we're doing. So we're going to be heading on a course of 309 for our departure. Alright. Preset that on our heading set bug. Go. That's set. Excellent. Alright, now let's get some illumination happening on the aircraft. And we're going to want to put our pitot heat on, anti-collision light on. Alright, now we're not going to need our landing lights. Now landing lights are retractable landing lights as well, so we'll probably see more of those when we come in for a landing. Put our de-icing on. Though it's hot in Australia, it's still we still want to watch out for make sure there's nothing untoward happening in the skies. And you can see down here we've got our generator lights have been extinguished now that we've got the 2 generators. Now I can shield the battery guard there. Alright, I think we're just about ready. Alright. Well, I think my co-pilot thinks that everything is should be up and running, so let's taxi out. Now let's first quickly check our winds. So our winds look like they're about 210 degrees at about 6 knots. So we're going to taxi out. We're going to use runway 23 for our departure today. You hear the nice little whoosh sound as the brakes release there. Have a bit of a long taxi now as we head over to our departure runway. Ground handling of this aircraft as we're taxiing down is actually quite nice. It's just very docile on the ground with its tricycle undercarriage, but it's got a interesting sort of format to its tricycle undercarriage, in the fact that the nose wheel does sit exceedingly high. So because of that, it does sort of mean that it's finishing, as you can see from the as we just sort of taxis past there, that the landing gear, sort of the nose wheel door, sort of actually opens out past the actual aircraft nose when the wheel's extended. So it's some interesting little design quirks and stuff like that. But yeah, it does have this sort of tendency to sit sort of tail down because of the nature of that extended nose wheel. So as we continue our long taxi, I'm just going to quickly take a moment just to set up my ADF here. So 398 degrees. So a bit of a shake there. The camera. Alright, so 398. 9. Let's swing this one up. There we go. Nice, that's all set. No VOR, as I said, the aircraft does have the can intercept VOR and glide slopes, and does have your sort of standby and your two nav channels and your two comm channels, as well as your ADF. But it's one of those things where it's an aircraft that is very much out of the era of old-fashioned navigation. So Aeroplane Heaven have sort of made some sort of acknowledgements towards what many of us simulator pilots and modern pilots are used to. And the GPS does run in the background. It is there in the background just as a shift pop-up, and there is a nav GPS switch down there on the autopilot. But no, it's designed to be flown as a more traditional aircraft and more traditional navigations, unless of course you choose the modern avionics suite modified model that is in here, and we'll get to that one a bit more once we're in the air. Alright, as we finally taxi up to our runway, we've get everything ready for takeoff. So we'll set our 1 notch of flaps. Just 2 notches of flaps on this aircraft. As I said, it's a fairly simple, basic design, this aircraft, and but designed to compete with the sort of glut of surplus aircraft after the end of the Second World War, and it was quite successful in doing so. Let's finish our lineup here. Alright, beautiful sound of those brakes releasing there. Okay, so it looks like we've got everything set. So as we're going to be. Okay, alright. Now the aircraft does require, one thing I did learn is that the aircraft does require a bit of trim on the roll. She has a tendency to sort of dart to side, so we'll have to watch that on our takeoff roll. And she's not the most of short field sort of type aircraft, so she doesn't need a bit of time to get going. But once she does, and into the air we go. things that you learn very quickly about this aircraft is that if you don't take your eyes off if you take your eyes off the controls like you do when you're filming and stuff like that, you can be a problem. She has a tendency to do things like okay, it could be me, and don't get me wrong, it could be me as well, but she has a tendency to sort of overdo controls at time to time. So, for example, on the climb out there, she just wanted to just roar into the sky. She really did. Unfortunately, the Gypsy Queen engines can't always keep up with that. So sometimes you've got to watch sort of the way the trim on the aircraft goes, because otherwise you can find yourself stalling out or plunging to your doom very, very quickly. So it's it's something to be aware of. It really is. It really is. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get onto our headings. So we're going to start. As I said, the autopilot's a very basic sort of style of autopilot. Where it's a simple, altitude hold, and it's a simple gyroscope idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our heading hold going. Okay, we've got our heading lock on. Now we can just now it's just a case of manipulating the throttles and the trim to make sure that we climb out. So we're aiming for about 110 knots in the climb. And so you just got to watch that VSI, and you got to watch the trim, because she can bleed airspeed very, very quickly if you're not careful and you don't keep an eye on it. So sometimes she can sometimes be nimble, but overall she can be a little sluggish. But that's part of this aircraft's charm. It really is. It's the fact that it's an aircraft that you can't just sort of press a couple of buttons and it does everything for you. No, you actually have to actively monitor your aircraft. You really have to. You can't rely on an alarm or something, or some form of computer to actually solve all your problems for you. No, you've actually got to pay attention to what's going on, because if you don't, you can end up actually sort of bleeding off too much airspeed in a climb, or you can find yourself stalling out quite easily. So it's something to be it's something just that you do have to keep an eye on, and I actually really like aircraft where you have to do this, because it means that you're actually learning more about flying as well, and not just about sort of controlling a computer and stuff like that. Like for example, I've just let the airspeed drop a bit too much, so now that my nose is going to sort of drop quite significantly. So yeah, you've got to be really sort of on the ball when it comes to the actual the way the actual aircraft is behaving and performing. You really do have to keep an eye on it, and it's just something that you can't just set a couple of buttons and forget about it and it'll just do it for you. No, you really have to sort of pay attention to what's going on around you. So I probably would normally be gas-bagging a lot more, but I'm really focused actually not making a complete twat of myself on this video. So alright, so we're still climbing. We're going to be cruising at it's going to be about 5,000 feet today, so it's going to be a fairly low cruise. Frantically working the trim wheel here to make sure that everything goes right. Okay, that's going too much into a climb. Turn that down a bit. And the trim's not, as I said before, it's knowing its heritage of coming back to the Mosquito, you think it'd be a bit quite nimble, but just because it's something from the design bureau doesn't mean it is, because it's designed for completely different purposes. This aircraft was actually really fundamentally designed to replace the DH.104 Dragon sort of family of aircraft, the Dragon Repeat. That's what it was actually designed to do, and it formulated, it all came out of part of something called the Brabazon project, which was a British World War during wartime study on post-war sort of aviation and what was going to be required in that. And I'm about to stall this aircraft, I think. Turn that down again. As it, yeah, the Brabazon Committee, out of which came several designs, and this was one of them. The idea was that this was going to be a short-haul feeder airliner to actually bring passengers into sort of like the main hubs and give them for the bigger, more transcontinental airliners to be able to feed into. Obviously the Bristol Brabazon was the sort of lead idea of that, which unfortunately never lived to see service. However, several aircraft from the project did see service, including of course the DeHaviland Dove and the DeHaviland Devon. So there you go. The interesting enough, and long story short, the Dove is the civilian version. The Devon was the military sort of designation. And they were used by most notably, of course, by the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy. The Royal Air Force having over 30 Devons, and the Royal Navy having, I think off the top of my head, about 18 of the Sea Devons, as they were known as in Royal Navy service. They're also used by several armed forces around the world, including most prolifically by the Royal New Zealand Air Force, as both a VIP transport and as a training and navigational aircraft, which is a model that is also featured as part of this add-on as well. Alright, just about hit our cruise altitude here, so now I'm going to turn on my altitude holds. Just about there. As I said, basically it's just a click, that's it, switch, and just do it, and it should do its thing. So there you go. Alright, we're good for now. Now I'm going to need to turn my audio on, otherwise I'm going to hear the ADF. Alright, so that gives us this now gives us a chance to quickly look around the cockpit. So as I said, the aircraft has its basic 6 that you sort of see in all your aircraft as well. So that's all there. Great to know. And then we've got our sort of electronics panel down here. So this is where you've got your probably the one thing that sort of was of course the you can actually use squawk codes. So that's all enterable in there, and your different squawk modes all there as well. So you've got your basic gloves here. Now we've departed there, so we can go. Now the other part of the taxi light was also interesting because its position. It could also be used as a signalling light to signal on the ground and things like that, and signal other aircraft because of its position and the fact that the light actually shone through. It was actually mounted on the nose wheel door, which of course mounted on the outside of the aircraft, and was actually had this dual stage, dual purpose as it were. Then, of course, in our center column, we've got our main de-icing and feathering and emergency sort of fire extinguisher panel at the top there, and of course we've got our ADF screen here as well below it. Beyond that, we go to our sort of starting panel that we saw before as we were actually engaged the aircraft. Of course, our outside air temperature gauge as well, all in degrees centigrade, and then our throttle control. So just as I said, pretty basic. Cruise should be able to close my cowl flaps. There's those. Alright. And of course, we've got our flaps sort of lever here, and we've got the cross-feed controls for our fuel tanks here as well. So at the moment we're drawing fuel from both tanks, and of course you can set them on a cross-feed and go from there. And interesting enough, it does actually change the aircraft dynamics as if you do sort of have everything from one. If you do run into fuel in one tank and stuff like that. So it's as I said, it's quite nicely modelled. It is quite nicely modelled. And then finally, sort of as we've in the Cobalt seats here, we've got the another sort of backup compass over here as well, which is more information about our dials and our speed and our nav radios up the top here as well. And we'll see later on in the military versions, we've actually got a slightly different sort of setup for the compass overhead as well. In fact, actually, now that we're sort of established on our cruise here, let's go have a look at the cockpit of the Devons and the military versions, and we'll even have a look at the one that's the token modern avionics one. So here we are in the cockpit of the Devon, so the military variant. We're in the Royal New Zealand Air Force one, which was used as a navigation trainer. So funny enough, you can actually see some of the exterior model differences over there. There you go. But no, interior model differences. So obviously things have been rearranged because the military variant didn't so much rely on having two pilots. What it relied on was having a pilot and a navigator. So the navigator would sit in the right hand seat and the pilot would sort of sit over here. And it was the navigator's job to, control the radios and monitor the aircraft's course for, whatever mission that they were involved in. So the setup is a little differently. Although the yoke's there, there's no sort of controls on that side of the aircraft. So the primary controls are still on this side. All the controls that we saw before are all here. We've got our lights and everything down here. You got your basic 6 back up there. So they're all as we would normally expect. However, the center console is a little different. So we've got the all the engine information sort of laid out slightly differently. In the center here, we've got the ADF is higher up. So again, for easier reach for the navigator. So, and that's put in a more prominent position on the coaming instead of being lower down in the console. And of course, the navigator then has this very primitive but a very early sort of flight recording type information where it would actually go through and track everything as the aircraft moves through the air based on the gyroscopes of the aircraft. So, and just leave it on a paper printout, which is a very interesting, archaic, very interesting way of sort of flight recording, and actually quite fascinating. The history of that's quite interesting as well. So yeah, otherwise all the basic functionality is still the same. Everything that you need to operate and enjoy the aircraft is still the same, but just the cockpit layout is fairly significantly different in from the right hand seat, at least. Maybe not so much from the left hand seat, but from the right hand seat everything is a little different. It really is. So there you go. Something else that you notice as well is that the visibility is a bit higher, so there's nothing on the side here sort of blocking the vision. And it had this very interesting sort of like almost unique design sort of thing with the way the canopy was actually sort of put together, having this sort of metal frame in the middle of the plexiglass. And there was nothing else sort of painted or moulded onto the rest of the cockpit glass. There was this part which was part of the airframe, but otherwise, this was all sort of actually blank, and actually sort of gave it a little bit extra visibility as well. Probably more important for, of course, military ops. But this was also present on the earlier models of the Dove for civilian service as well, and quite clear lookout as well about there. And again, of course, we've got the overhead sort of compass as well. The Royal Navy version that's released as part of this one has a slightly different. It's got a naval lubber compass in there as well, which I should know the differences and like how all the terms are, but I'm just not going to go into it now because that's just a whole another kettle of fish. But needless to say, there are various different types of there's two distinct different types of overhead compass in that one. But otherwise, as I said, it's still the same familiar sort of layout cockpit that we saw in the traditional Dove as well. Now, of course, for those who do like their button pushing, there has been an acknowledgement to those who do like their button pushing. And the Dove 6 that we were in before has also got a variant in there of a modernised cockpit. So now that we've had a look at the military cockpit, let's go and have a look at the Dove with a modernised cockpit. Alrighty, so here we are in the Dove 6B modernised cockpit. So it's pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is that in the centre where we did have just the ADF and the radio sort of knobs and everything there and the autopilot control below it, now we just have this sort of one block of sort of stacked of modern instruments. So these are all sort of gauges from Just Flight and Aeroplane Heaven, sort of just designed for it and stuff like that, which is all cool. The only thing I kind of, but okay, one I kind of have two issues with this. One is that it's not really, this isn't an aircraft for that, but that's neither here nor there. Some as I said, some which still fly today have been retrofitted to have some of this stuff. So okay, fair enough. There are aircraft out there that has it. But the actual issue I have with it is actually to do with the function of it. So in Coronado, Alabama, like a whole heap of other publishers have all got setups very, very similar to this one, where same with Garmin, the COM is in the volume is sort of like where, especially with Garmin's, the volume button is also the on-off button. So you scroll it down to all the way volume all the way down to 0, and that then makes it off. And you scroll it up, and that brings it on, and then it controls volume. And you do all that through the scroll wheel on the mouse. Only problem, doesn't work for this one. So it's kind of the only bugbear I've actually got with it, is that the scroll wheel doesn't do anything. You actually have to click and drag, to bring it, turn it on, and change the volumes and stuff like that. So it's sort of like, I'm not really sure why that doesn't work. I really don't know why. I just think it's weird, and it does the same thing in both FSX and in P3D. So that's kind of my bugbear with it. It really kind of is. It's really annoying. But at the same time, I think I would like to think that very few people actually fly with this modernised cockpit in there. So, is it a deal breaker? Not really. No, it's really not, because that's just kind of I'm not going to fly with it. So for me, it's there. Little shame that they didn't check that. I'm sure it's a simple XML change or something, but don't quote me. I don't make gauges. I make repaints. I don't make gauges. Just make that clear. So yeah, that's a little annoying, but otherwise, you got your basic functionality. You've got your set of do you want to do by GPS? Do you want to see the course deviation indicator in there? Your nav GPS switch is up here. Your avionics on off has been moved to there. This though is a little odd. It's just this random propeller one. Well, it's just this really random nav. It's the nav GPS mode switch from the old autopilot panel that is still just chilling there. Like, you get one up here, but this one just kind of chills here, not attached to anything, which is kind of weird. So yeah, slight model error there. I'm hoping they'll fix that in a patch. But again, deal breaker, not really, because I personally will never be flying in this particular avionics enabled cockpit. So not a huge deal breaker for me. Incidentally, while we're here, you can see what I was saying before about the fact that you've got the extra sort of fairings and stuff over here to actually which sort of restricts the vision a little bit, whereas in the early variants and the military variants, you got the sort of bigger view there. But anyway, side effect. But yeah, so it's an issue. It's a bugbear. I think it's annoying. I think it's a little silly. Should it be fixable? Hopefully they'll fix it in a patch soon. But is it a deal breaker? Yeah, not really. Not really. Because you're buying it to put these to fly with these instruments, you probably shouldn't be buying this aircraft in the first place. No offense, but you probably really shouldn't be. But anyway, there you go. So yes, but otherwise that is the modern cockpit. Not really much modern about it, but yes, that is the modernised cockpit for those who wish to fly it. Now that we've had a look at the different cockpit options, let's return back to our original flight, and let's go have a look at some exterior textures. So the exterior modelling is quite beautifully done, and it definitely captures the distinctive shapes that the Dove and the Heron actually really did, especially with the sort of like the VHF sort of cock's claw antenna that we see at the above the cockpit there, and it really is beautifully done and beautifully modelled, and it's got all the little details that we saw when we were prepping for takeoff, which is really nice to see. And each of the models are different. Like, they actually are different. It's not just, as I said before, as I said, alluded to earlier, it's not just one model. It's not just the interior layout that's changed. The exterior model does actually change for each variant as well. Like, for example, the Royal New Zealand Air Force one reflects its training role, and the fact that its navigation training role, so it's got actual navigation equipment fitted to the wings. and to the nose as well, to actually, that was, unique to the New Zealand variants. It was not found on any other variants anywhere, and it was, of course, we saw the interior modelling is different as well as we were looking over the cockpits. So the detail is quite nice, and I feel that the quality of the textures are absolutely amazing. Interesting enough, Just Flight's done something that they've done with other aircraft before, most noticeably, of course, with their 757, and with their, well, actually, pretty much everything they do it with. They do it with the Chipmunk, they do it with the 146 and all the rest of it, where they actually include different liveries as add-on purchasable packs. So, and the Dove is no different. There is an additional livery pack available, which gives you another 4 liveries for your Dove and Devon as well. Which is pretty cool to see. And of course, and a fully detailed and included paint kit is of course offered as well for you to create your own. But overall, yeah, the quality of the textures are absolutely amazing, and they look of an amazing quality as well, whether you're in P3D or in FSX. As I was saying before, yeah, this aircraft is fully compliant across all of the FSX and P3D range. Currently, of course, we're watching it, as I said before, in P3D, but I have tested it in FSX, and it looks just as beautiful in FSX as well. So there you go. And as I said, like overall, I think that modelling-wise, Aeroplane Heaven have done and Just Flight have done an absolutely amazing job, sort of recreating this fairly unique piece of aviation history. And funny enough, to this day, there are still several flying. And it's got an interesting history as well beyond that, beyond the fact that it's some of them are still flying today, not just in their original sort of configuration with the 2 Gypsy Queen engines, which are also of course very reminiscent of the engines of the Dragon series, which this aircraft was essentially designed to replace. But it had a new lease on life in the 70s and 80s with an American company actually offering a turbocharged conversion, where they were replacing the engines with 2 turbocharged engines, as well as doing other modifications, including lengthening the fuselage to allow it to have more passengers, or a bigger capacity for bigger sort of more amenities to be able to put in its role as an executive transport, which was more of its role in the US rather than the feeder airline that it saw in the rest of the world. And probably the most noticeable change, of course, was the fact that many of these Riley conversions also had a completely new redesigned tail, which had quite a dramatic sweep to the tail as well, which gave it a very unique appearance as well. And the Dove and the Devon had its big brother, the Heron, which was essentially the same basic design, just lengthened and with 4 engines instead of 2, and was sort of designed to be its longer range operating cousin as well. So yeah, it's got an absolutely fascinating history, and I think the history has been given justice by the guys over at Aeroplane Heaven and Just Flight with this one, because yeah, it definitely looks amazing. In terms of how it feels, like many Aeroplane Heaven products, it's a balance between systems and between functionality. You can sort of take your shortcuts. You do have the option of the modern gauge, the modern instruments, or you can fly it as it it was meant to be flown. In terms of the fact that you're relying on the old style and old world gauges and instruments and navigation techniques. So you have your option with that one. It captures the different marks as well, with the subtle differences between them, with the way the bubble on the top of the cockpit is. The fact that all the early ones, it was actually all perspex. So none of this, there was nothing else was sort of on the top there. Although on this one, we see the extra sort of plane form, the extra covering there. But on the original aircraft, that wasn't there. That was just all perspex. So, and they capture that on the early models, which are included as part of the pack. So, it's great to see that they really sort of stepped up and actually took a holistic view and actually gave us the different models of the different versions as well, which is pretty cool to see, and great, and just a nice sort of all rounding of the aircraft. overall, I think she handles pretty well. She can be a little vicious, yeah, but having never flown one myself, I can't claim to be an absolute expert. But the sound set is absolutely beautiful. It actually sounds like the engines. I've heard the engines running in a different aircraft in real life, and they do sound like the actual engines, which is nice. And overall, I think she handles on the ground quite nicely. She's fairly docile most of the time, but if you do push her past the limits, she will come back and bite you. So, and again, nice little sort of touch to be able to make sure that you get that experience with the aircraft. So there you go. Alright, well, now that we've had a look at had a random discussion about the outside of the aircraft and, of course, some of a little bit of its history, we might, we'll resume this video a little bit later on as we come into land to our destination, and we can see what the landing's like of this aircraft on a fairly remote country strip. Alrighty, so here we are, we're coming into final approach here. We're going to see how we go with this one. So we're just bleeding off our airspeed as we come in, so our winds favour the rough strip today. So, and the aircraft was, did operate in it did operate in Australia and was very popular in sort of parts of that were formerly British colonies in Africa as well. So just passing below our minimum extension speeds, so we're going to drop our gear. Now it is all hydraulically operated as well. You can see it all coming through down there. Right, and the other thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to extend our lights. On, there we go. Watch out I don't stall the aircraft as we come in there. As I said, you've got to really pay attention to this aircraft, you really do. So dropped a bit below our approach speed there. The approach, we're coming close on VREF. Bit high. We're looking quite nice though, I think. Nice and stabilised, coming in for a nice slightly off centre landing. Slightly back on the centre line, there we go. A little bit of a crosswind, I think. Okay. Coming in. Nice soft touchdown. There we go. There we are down onto, just going off the edge of the dirt there. And the brakes released there, and there we go. Right, there we go. Yeah. So that's our, that's us down and safe. Not that there's much at this airstrip, that's for sure. Alright. So we'll taxi a little bit down on here. Not that I think there's much in the way of taxiways out here at this particular airfield. Pause. So as we taxi back, it's probably just my sort of final thoughts on the aircraft. So my final thoughts is that overall she's a pretty well done interpretation of this aircraft, and considering it's an aircraft that we don't have another of, like, you know, this is it. There is no other options if you are a fan and do have memories of this aircraft, and I think it's been pretty well done. I mean, having never flown one myself or seen one fly, I've sat in I sat in one that was non-flying, a non-flying example, and from what I remember, it is sort of it is very much there for that kind of stuff. It feels right. It adds a nice. It still has this nice balance between an aircraft that you have to really pay attention to actually, you know, to get the most out of, but yet still accessible to people who are a relatively casual flyer. Now, this is not going to be for someone who just wants to push a couple of buttons and then it does everything for you. It's definitely not going to be for you. However, it is a great aircraft if you do enjoy and actually want to sort of experience some of the challenges of flying, flying as it used to be, kind of thing. You know, I know that sounds horrible, but you know, flying as it used to be. You know, relying on fairly rudimentary navigation sets and things like that. This is a great experience for that one. It really is, and for that alone, I would recommend it. So yeah, I think overall this is a quite nicely done add-on. It really is. Now let's just set my parking brake. There we are. Cool. Parking brake set. Props to idle. Throttle cut off. Turn off our mags. Alright. Okay. Turn the de-icing systems off now. Right off. We'll put turn ground power on. Batteries off. Door open and get all the other side things that we need for us. There we go. Okay. So as I was saying, overall I think it's a great little add-on. I think that the guys over at Aeroplane Heaven and Just Flight have done an absolute justice to this aircraft, an aircraft that was sometimes overlooked by history, but still a very important post-war airliner, and really was a common sight throughout the world, and not just in the United Kingdom. And I think they've done the history of that justice, and you get the feeling, and you feel some of that history when you're flying in it. You really do. So I think this is a great add-on. I would highly recommend it to anybody. I really would. I think it's great. As I said, as long as you understand that it's not a push-button kind of airplane, you do actually have to fly it. Even on autopilot, you still need to keep an eye on it. You really, really do. So just remember that. So there you go. Alright folks, well thanks very much for joining me for this review of the newly released Just Flight and Aeroplane Heaven DeHaviland DH.104 Dove and Devon. Thanks very much once, as I said, for joining me. Don't forget, as always, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these videos and want to see more. And of course, as always, you can always catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook and on Twitter. Just search Wing24. Alright folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.